Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Heavy Metal History Podcast. Apologies for the delay in last week's episode, but we appreciate you guys sticking with us. Sometimes shit just happens, but we have a fucking awesome episode for you this week. As usual, coming all the way from Washington, that is me, Dustin. And once again, I'm going to do it from Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, g'day everyone. My name's Matt. Yeah, g'day. How's it going, man?
Good day. It's you know what? The weather is fucking starting to get nice here. It's not raining anymore. The sun stays out till like 7:30.
Oh, well, here's the thing. We just had a massive cyclone. For any of you Queenslanders at the top end, big shout out to you guys dealing with that, and my condolences for anything that's happened up there. But I mean, yeah, so it's just going to get worse and worse down here in Sydney. But yeah, for all you fine Queenslanders out there, we got your back.
Yeah, be safe out there. That's
yeah.
Man, Queensland. Every time I hear anything about Queensland, it's just fucking. Feels like the end of the world out there.
Oh yeah, it's like the top end, like around about this time normally gets to like cyclone season. So yeah, that's just kind of the way it is.
Fair enough. I mean, you know what's funny, man? I actually did see something about that, and I didn't read it, but I was just like, I forget you're so far away from Queensland, but I was just like, oh shit, I hope Matt's okay.
Yeah, well, it's going to probably get rainy down here in Sydney for a while, so like it's gonna be bad a little bit here, but it will be fine. But anyway, enough about the weather. Let's talk about some fucking awesome thrash metal from 1987.
Oh yes. So yeah, this whole episode is pretty much purely thrash metal, except for one album, and 3 out of the 4 bands that we're going to talk about tonight are Bay Area legends, basically. And I think it's only appropriate that we start with a band who is, well, they're not from where I used to live, but they recorded their album where I used to live in Santa Rosa, California. So we're going to talk about Death Angels Ultraviolence. They recorded it in 2 days in the middle of June of 1986. And it came out April 23rd, 1987. So almost 30 years now. And, dude, I don't even know what to say. This fucking album, looking at how young these kids were, the word prodigy is just so apt for this fucking album and this band.
Well, not even that. I think the word we were looking for, especially for this album, regardless of age or whatever, is relentless.
Yes.
This album just goes from start to finish, and it just doesn't slow down. And the songs are long. There's like a 10 and a half minute song on this album, but it just goes and it goes and it goes, and it doesn't. And it's just like a drag car that kind of just goes, 0 to 60, but just keeps going.
Yeah, from the moment it fucking starts, it's just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
The way I would look at it is like, say you drink a lot of beer and you're about to get on one of those rides that just fucking spins at a carnival or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I want this to stop right now. I want this to stop. And it just keeps fucking going. And then you get off and you puke your guts out and you're like, fuck it, let's do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, it really does feel like basically an amusement park ride, this album.
Yeah. And it's insanely fucking solid, man. I would not suspect if I didn't already know or like do more research that these kids were as young as they were when they wrote this album, especially the fucking drummer being 14.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you really did say that, it's really coming at the tail end of towards 80s thrash. So 80s thrash has really started to define its sound, and especially with some of the more albums we're going to be talking about later in the show. But you can hear this album. I can really do hear a lot of other Bay Area worship as well. I can hear like a lot of Metallica inspired riffs.
Yep.
In some of the songs as well. Like it's like, oh, that almost sounds like Motor Breath, or that sounds like Seek and Destroy a little bit in there, but like it's like a nod, but it isn't like a blatant rip off. But but it's still original enough to keep its own, original its own idea and make it unique in its own way.
Yeah, and I think the reason that one of those things is kind of apparent in their sound is because even in their early days, like when they were even younger, Kirk Hammett of Metallica like recorded their Kill As One demo in 1985. So those dudes were like all aware of Death Angel and like these little thrasher kids just like blowing everybody out of the water, making most other bands look bad, to be honest, if you really think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things. It's still hard to believe that they were all under 20 years old when they recorded this album.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the only thing I was writing musically at 20 years old was like shitty grindcore songs.
Yeah.
It's like you play 3 chords and scream at the top of your lungs for 2 seconds, and you're like, hey, there's a song. I mean, I did it, fam. Yeah. The only thing I feel is like a little bit lacking are the guitar solos. They're very basic. They're not like technically proficient, but they still sound good. Yeah, it doesn't need to be, but it still sounds good too with the songs as they've written. For it to kind of like, still be rudimentary in the way that it is, but still sound good, if that makes sense. Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's like I said, this was one of those albums where you said, "Okay, we're going to talk about this." I'd listened to this album like 5, maybe 6 years, and it wasn't because like, it's not, I didn't like it or anything like that. It's just because like it kind of just fell kind of by the wayside, and I kind of just got memory hold a little bit. But then hearing it again for like the first time, it's like, oh yeah, I remember these guys.
Yeah, I met these guys once in 2008 or 9 maybe. It was like one of my first tours of Carnifex, and we were playing in San Francisco, and they were all at the San Francisco show, and like I got to meet them like pretty briefly, and I wasn't really like super aware of them at the time. So like after meeting them, I went and like got the album and listened to it, and I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. And I didn't know they were that young when they wrote the album back then either. I didn't find this out till like way later, and I was like, Jesus, I met those fucking guys. So yeah, I mean, those guys still all hang around the Bay Area. It's fucking crazy to me that they recorded it in Santa Rosa, where I used to live. I don't want to say for sure because I haven't looked it up, but I think the studio that they recorded in isn't around anymore. But I could be wrong on that, and it's probably still operating. But I've never heard of the studio while I was living there, so I'd be surprised if it was still around, or if maybe it's just some kind of underground thing. People don't really talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. Or probably got turned into like a Walmart or something. I don't know.
Shit. In Santa Rosa and North Bay, it probably got turned into some rich guy's fucking bidet room.
True that.
But I mean, speaking of the recording, I mean, the production on it is pretty fucking good, man. The album is like filled with just killer riffs, and
yeah, exactly. And for a 1987 debut album, it does it really does have all of the polish and the professionalism of someone that's in like their 3rd or 4th album, and they've actually hit their stride and they found what they're looking for. So yeah, it's really surprising that that these guys aren't so much this isn't considered like one of the greatest things of all, like the greatest thrash albums of all time. I mean, it probably is, but like it isn't up higher as it should be.
In doing some research, I think the main reason for that is kind of after this album, the output wasn't as good. I haven't listened to a lot of those albums, to be honest, but from what I was reading is like the songs just kind of lost all their like fuck yeah, like
just some of the potency and just how raw and just how fierce they were, just kind of like again fell by the wayside.
Yeah, and then there was a period of time where they just went on hiatus for like 10 years, which isn't surprising. They started this band so young. I'm sure there was a point in time where they were like, shit, real life, got to do the thing. So I think they're one of those bands that had so much potential, and because they were so young, probably just made not very good decisions or had other people making bad decisions for them.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked against them in the long run, because I don't know, man, the way that, like you were saying, that this album sounds matured from the get-go, I could see that if different decisions were made, that this band could be in every single conversation of the big four of thrash, when that conversation comes up of the big four and everything.
Exactly.
If things would have just went a little differently, they could easily be in that. But unfortunately, they're just kind of one of like I would say just like underground, like
probably the middle of the B tier.
Yeah. And because mainly because of this album.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, like they're still releasing records. I think 2016's The Evil Divide was the last one that came out, and so like, they're still putting out quality material, and they're still playing shows and all that. So it just goes to show, that you can still kind of they've bounced back a little bit, and they're still being relevant today.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're definitely putting out like quality stuff again. They're like getting back on the road, playing shows a lot more again. Yeah, I mean, it was their first album. I think they just kind of hit fucking lightning, or lightning hit them with this, and who knows how long they'd been playing these songs for, that they just fucking had them down, and they were just so influenced by everything around them, being in like the Bay Area scene, that they soaked it up, and this was like the culmination of all that stuff, and it worked out, man. I mean, despite their age and everything, I feel like maybe for the most part it was like the peak of their performing capabilities a little bit, because even some of the newer stuff isn't necessarily as fast or as like relentless as this album. Still, it's a little bit tame, but it's not bad, not by any means at all.
Yeah, true. Yes. 30 years. Does this album still hold up?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'd probably say that this is one of those albums, like kind of like nostalgia, like you didn't really kind of remember it, but then when you put it in, it's almost like listening to it for the first time again, which is what I personally found.
Yeah.
And I think that's and I think I had more of an appreciation for it because of that. So Death Angels, the Ultra Violence. Yeah,
and then I don't remember if I mentioned it, but everybody in the band they were all cousins with each other, so they were all family members. So there was a lot of, like they knew each other really well. And in fact, I have an interview kind of with the band that's from like one of their CDs. It was like all this behind the scenes stuff. So before we go on to the next record, we'll just do some closing thoughts, and then we'll pop that interview in here and let you guys kind of listen to like how they wrote the songs and what they think of like this album and what they put into it, and kind of their thoughts on being minorities and being a family and just like this stuff, and their age and everything. It's an interesting little interview. So, yeah, man. Final thoughts or anything like that?
Yeah, honestly, just again, it's one of those ones where it's just pick it up and you'll be pleasantly surprised again.
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me. Is it was kind of like listening, like kind of last week when we were talking about Anthrax's Among the Living. I hadn't listened to that in so long, and then I put this on, and I was just like, oh fuck, man, why do I always?
This.
Yeah, there's so much music, it's hard to like retain everything all the time. Especially listening to as much shit as I do, it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the next thing you've got here,
before that,
something that I listened. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, let's play that interview real quick, and yeah, let you guys listen to that real quick, and when we get back, we'll have another album.
the name Death Angel frightens some adults and stuff, and it's like, Death Angel, oh my God, that's so extreme, like people would think. But in reality, if you think, what is Death Angel? It's not really that extreme. When you die, well, I'm sorry, but when you do die, Death Angel is just like something you do run into, and it's not like someone who, he makes you die and he takes you to a certain place. When you die, you meet up with a Death Angel, and he just guides you to what you've previously done in your life. You're the one who chooses your fate, and he's the one who just guides you there. You decide whether you go to heaven or hell.
We all grew up in the Bay Area, like on the two sides of the Bay Bridge, Concord and Daly City. And, well, San Francisco's pretty cool, but I'd like to check out some other cities in the U.S. or Europe or anywhere, just to go and play and skate other territories.
I like playing around in the Bay Area. A lot of the people in the crowd, you know a lot of people anyway, just from the shows. There was like a bunch of friends out there rather than just faces of people that, you know, they're not looking at you like waiting to judge you and see how you're gonna be. It's like they know how we are already.
Around here, it seems like people know more that we've been together for around 5 years and working at it. But it's gonna seem like when the album comes out, we just hope like the people don't think, oh, look, another new band. There is a lot of work behind this, and it was just not like an overnight thing.
It's like an advantage for us for being relatives and stuff like that. Because you know everybody.
You're closer.
Parents,
you're closer to people. You trust. You know, you have more trust than anything.
You don't say, all right, we're kicking out that guy, you know, the drummer or whoever, like tomorrow, and we'll get somebody else. You know, we stick to it.
And plus, when you're writing and when you're like putting together a song, you know, it's like we've grown up together. So like when it comes to agreeing to things, we pretty much agree to like everything.
Well, our Filipino background has pretty much nothing to do with it because like we just play our type of music. Like it's not our background has an influence on us or nothing. It's just we're Filipino and we play thrash.
It's irrelevant to the music. People don't really use our ethnic background to classify us or anything like that. I guess we're noticeable because we're cousins and stuff. We sort of we look like we fit together, but that doesn't have anything. It's like pretty much irrelevant to our music or what we're all about anyway. We don't think about that.
And to her love, deep in her love, just you feel burning inside. You made your last happen so fast. Look in her eyes, there's nowhere to hide.
It was like 5 years ago, summer of '83, was it? '82, summer of '82, and I guess me and Ann started to jam.
Dan was around. He was singing.
Yeah, it was actually me, Den, and Ann, and we'd write some songs, just like basic ones, mess around,
copies,
do a lot of cover tunes, and then Gus came in on rhythm guitar.
About September of '84, that's when I joined the band. I used to go see them when they played before because I used to go watch them. And so I guess I could see from a bystander's point of view. The music's changed a lot because of their influences. Back then it was more of like a Black Sabbath influence with Tigers, a Pantang influence, and it was really heavy, a slow, like, grindy-ish thing, and it was technical, but now it's developed into a more high energy now, and I like it better.
The music's pretty different from a lot of people, other bands. And there's a lot of feeling in our music too. It's not just a bunch of noise,
Like a lot of our songs deal with like foreseeing nuclear war and and like maybe how it could be prevented or something, or what could end up happening if it goes too far. And a lot of our songs we're writing about now for
things
the new
around
album.
you, like
Yeah,
society and stuff like that, like about your life and all that sort of stuff.
Some people, like they act like you could tell they sort of act two-faced because they talk to you like but then
as if we can't handle it or something.
As if we don't really know what they're talking about, like oh these kids,
Yeah.
and there was always these kids, and it's like we've been doing this for so long. It's like we know what we're doing and stuff.
We know what's happening now.
Now Judgment Day, final death is on its way.
Our new album, due out on April 24th, our debut album called The Ultraviolence. I really like it a lot because, and I'm not saying that just because I'm in the band, but of course anyone in the band is going to like their own music, but also like, because I do not write the music, and I listen to music, and that gives me the point to like listen to it and go, damn, the music's good. I like it.
Yeah.
Especially for a debut album, for the first one, with everything limited resources that we had. I mean, we had pretty good stuff, but
short amount of time to record
Yeah.
and mix the
but for
final.
what it is, I think it's good. And
Did it to the best of our ability.
You gotta have some type of show
Yeah.
on stage.
We try to concentrate a lot on our stage presence. We try to be really as tight as possible, yet
Should be into it and have fun and
just trying to go like as
be yourself,
hyper and
not
wild
just all
as
standing
you
there
want,
in
you
the
know?
corner.
Not just being like just standing on stage being like somebody stiff. Go out there and just like pour it all out,
intense smoke machines and fire. Our live show is just pretty much all, how would you say it? It's like human energy. It's basically just us. We're doing what we can do. Because live's like the main point of it. If you can't pull it off live, like why even do it in the studio?
Inspiration Souls group shot, audio track take 1.
We come here in the pyramids, South City. It's a library, but like me and my friends, we come down here and we skate. But then the librarian gets mad because the street's so narrow that they get scared when you come all fast and then you just stop instantly. So they complain and they threaten to call the cops and they hassle you, and it sucks.
In the night, in the circle of death, they congregate to hold a feast. There lies a body in the center of the ring. Soon becomes a beast. They sing the soul to glorify the dead. Chant eternal life. The master smiles and the lips are gleaming blade. Sound baptized by the night. Man without anguish. Man without fear. Man chosen with the earth. Evil commentation he hears. Man without anguish. Man without fear. Man chosen with the earth. Evil commentation.
At my high school, I'm the senior class president. It's bizarre being senior class president, and it seems weird because I do look a bit different than most senior class presidents would at various other high schools. And also, I'm in a program called Youth Educators, and that first we go through this training program and we learn about drugs and how they can affect you and peer pressure and how to deal with that. And then we do that for about 7 weeks. And then after that, we get assigned a classroom of 8th graders, and we go to the 8th grade, and once a week we get to teach our own class. We get to teach them
about drugs and how to handle peer pressure. And also, like, we signed a contract from when the program starts, the program ends, that you won't do drugs or even drink or anything. Grown-ups at school, once you get like this, they take you more seriously than they would have. Before they met me, it was just like, oh, look at that punk, you know. But now that they see that I have been doing a pretty good job, it like opens their mind a bit more to think, you know, oh, maybe other people aren't really that bad.
All right, so yeah, hopefully you guys dug that little quick interview. Well, I don't know if it was quick. I think it's about 10 minutes long, but you know, some cool stuff from the band. So Matt, you want to take us into the next album we're going to talk about real quick?
Yeah, so if we're speaking about before, like albums that like I haven't listened to in a while, but then have found pleasantly surprising, this is the opposite. This is one I actually still listen to quite regularly, and this would be, of course, The Legacy by Testament.
Yeah.
Which is the first album that they did. Now I know that you and Derek had spoke about Practice What You Preach.
Yeah, very briefly.
Very briefly.
We didn't really get into anything behind it, but yeah, we talked about that album, so it's cool to kind of go back and talk about the first album.
Yeah, exactly. And of all of the albums that they've put out, that one that you guys talked about was probably my favorite one, and is my favorite one of them. I was kind of jealous that I didn't actually get to really touch more on that. But The Legacy is actually a really good and solid album. Pardon me. And again, this one came out in April 21st of 1987.
Yeah, this album, again, you know, when you think about thrash metal, for this being like the first album from the band, it's another one of those albums that's just like, oh, yeah, no, this is it's late in the game, kind of like we were talking about with Death Angel. You know, it's 87, so like thrash is kind of like, I don't want to say mainstream, but like there's a lot of thrash metal bands right now.
Yeah, exactly. And during 1987, around about that time, we had, you know, such great market albums that dominated the market. Like we had Metallica's Master of Puppets, Slayer's Rain and Blood, Creator's Pleasure to Kill.
Yeah.
All of them around. That was what everybody. Those three albums was what everybody was. That was all the rave.
Yeah, and it's like competition on such a high level that in order to get something out and try to stand out, it had to have been hard and very daunting. And then, you know, I say this album does that, no problem. It stands out with all those albums.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it really not only does it stand up, it actually really stands strong, and it stands firm and tall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, one thing since when Derek was on, we didn't really get to talk about it too much, and since this is kind of their first album, I thought it'd be cool to kind of give like a little background on Testament, because, you know, we talked about kind of the same thing with Iron Maiden, like all the stuff that happened before they recorded their first album. So the original band, funny enough, was called The Legacy, which is the name of this album. And it was formed by Eric Peterson on guitar with his cousin Derek Ramirez on vocals and guitar. So he was like a dual vocalist guitar player, which I'm always on the fence about those guys, but sometimes some people can pull it off. So, you know, like any other band that starts off, they had like a ton of lineup changes. And for The Legacy, not Testament yet, their first stable lineup had a bunch of East Bay guys. They had Eric Peterson, vocalist Steve Zuzza, bassist Greg Christensen, drummer Louis Clemente, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. And of course, like Derek was saying, one of his best friends and probably one of the best guitar players he knows, Alex Skolnick. And that was their first lineup. And exactly. I mean, Skolnick, man, he is like one of the fucking best guitar players. Like, you know, he's not like a shredding virtuoso guitar player, but he has such solid songwriting skills that it's hard to not ever have him in that, you know, kind of conversation of being like a guitar prodigy because of how young he was.
Exactly, and there's a lot of stuff with the album with Skolnick as well. You can really tell his influence. He's heavily influenced by jazz.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, people want to shit on jazz, but I mean that jazz guitar playing is some of the most technically proficient kind of stuff to learn, you know.
Oh no, no doubt, no doubt. It might sound like they're not playing the notes properly, but believe you fucking me, they are.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of with that lineup, they recorded like a 4-song demo in 1985. So pretty much around the same time that like Death Angel was doing their demo with Kirk. Steve Zuzza, he got recruited to sing for Exodus, so he left the band, and he recommended his high school friend Chuck Billy from a band called Dublin Death Patrol. Not a great name, but how young were they back then to think that Dublin Death Patrol was a cool fucking name?
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Right?
Yeah. So they had all the songs basically written. In fact, Steve Zuzza actually wrote the majority of this of the album's lyrics to this.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I really think Chuck Billy only contributed lyrically to, I think, the song "Do or Die."
Mm-hmm.
Like "Over the Wall," "Burnt Offerings." That was all Steve Zuzza.
Yeah, they used basically most of the stuff when they were still a legacy. So like 6 out of the 9 songs, he was the main songwriter. Sousa was. So that's not bad. I mean, that's a good chunk of the songs. So it's cool that he's still, a lot of guys when leaving a band like that, they would probably like super shitty and be like, "Don't fucking use my stuff," and it's cool that he was like okay with him like using the lyrics and everything, and I'm sure those guys are like friends, and it was like a mutual like kind of like,
yeah,
hey, go have fun in Exodus.
Yeah, exactly, and I really do think that that's probably one of the main attractors and why the Bay Area thrash in the 80s was such it really had a lot of appeal to everyone, because it seemed like everyone was like genuinely, like most people were genuinely friendly with each other. You'd have like Kirk Hammett come in and record that demo for a bunch of like 14-year-old kids, and then you'd have like him going from Exodus to Metallica, but then still kind of doing some stuff back with Exodus now, and so everyone really kind of seems to really want to lift each other up and really make the most out of it. And I think that was something that really attracted kids and a lot of people to the 80s kind of thrash scene once you really kind of read about it.
Yeah,
there was a real sense of camaraderie amongst everybody.
Yeah, and that's pretty rare, man, because a lot of scenes they get very, like they're not like that anymore. Nobody's like really trying to be friends or build a scene. It's like too competitive nowadays. But back then, like everybody's just like, hey man, we're all trying to do the same thing. We can all help each other out, and it's cool because it built a stable of more solid bands in the long run. If you look at it that way.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's and you look at it now. I remember like when I was briefly, and I'm talking very very briefly, involved in like Western Sydney like deathcore back in like 2010. Like everyone was trying to cause like fucking drama and go over shit. And I don't know if it was because of the internet or just because it was fucking shit blokes, but but yeah, no, it was nothing. It was like the polar opposite of what I'm describing. And sure, I could be full of shit, and I'm sure there was drama, which there was. I mean,
no, man, it was like that in my hometown too, man. None of the bands really wanted to like help each other. It was always just like everybody out for their own shit, and I mean Whitechapel was basically a local band from where I was from, and then once they blew up, like every other local band, all they did was just shit talk Whitechapel like pretty much regularly, be like, oh fuck those guys and their stupid breakdowns. And I mean,
it's like, dickhead, why you're playing breakdowns,
right? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they were playing breakdowns too. It's like, what the fuck ever, man. Whitechapel did it better, and they got noticed before you did. Suck it up, man. Keep doing your thing. Don't concentrate on what they're doing. But yeah, it was like that where I was from too. So it's very unfortunate that that's kind of what music has turned into. But digressing off of that, like we were saying, it's good to see that that's how the scene was back then, and obviously it made for a good melting pot. So one cool thing, or I don't know about a cool thing, but kind kind of talking about the recording of this album. I have a little quote here from Chuck Billy talking about it. He's saying, but looking back, when I listen to the Legacy record, it sounds tinny to me but it's because I know the way we recorded those guitars. We used condenser mics on some crazy clothes hanger concoction. I'm thinking, what was he thinking? It makes me realize that's why our guitar tones weren't that good. But who knows? Maybe Alex, he was still at a young age learning himself and experimenting. That's how it is. You just got to keep trying different things. But in producing, I think we had our songs down and nothing really changed from what we did on demos and rehearsed by the time we got in the studio. And it's funny that he says that because a bunch of other like reviews and stuff that I was reading basically say the opposite of what he was talking about, and that like the production is like really solid and this album sounds fucking really good. And
yeah,
I actually side with Chuck Billy on this. The guitars do sound really tinny and like kind of too much treble, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. But then again, at the same time, like the songwriting is so proficient, you can kind of just like
you look.
You do look past it, not because you want to, but because like you kind of have to.
Yep.
If that makes sense, yeah.
But it's cool to see like the people in the band, or at least one person in the band, kind of be like, yeah, I don't know, everybody thinks this album sounds good, but here's what it really happened, and here's what I think it sounds like, so you guys are kind of wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know, man. I think it's a good album. I mean, it's not. I think there's worse Testament albums. Not that there's any terrible ones, but
yeah, look, there's definitely worse Testament albums, and there's quite frankly better Testament albums than this one.
Yeah.
But this one is still solid, and it still goes, hard as it ever did 30 years from now. And it's something that as I said before, I still listen to on the regular.
Yeah, and listen to this one. To be honest, I do like Testament, but I don't listen to them a whole lot. So I just kind of like listened to it when I was doing research for the podcast and everything, and I was into it, man. I was same thing when I was doing it with Derek. When I listened to that, I was like, oh yeah, this isn't too bad. But I don't know, it's not something that I'm gonna go out of my way to listen to. My taste has changed too much where like I don't really want to listen to it that much.
Yeah, exactly. And like even with when they took that hiatus and they came back with just that slew of albums, I think from the formation of Damnation onwards, I think that's when I first got into Testament, because those were like the new fandangled things. And like I was always thinking, yeah, these albums are really, really cool and really solid. But then when you go back and listen to the older stuff, it's like, yeah, I get this now.
Yeah, it makes more sense in hindsight if you have their whole discography.
Exactly, and Testament will always be one of those bands, like, if they ever come to Australia again, I'd love to go see them. I never got to see them. I've always had chances to go, but couldn't. Mm-hmm. But I think next time I'll definitely have to, like, make some arrangements to go.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen them either. But then again, I'm not a big thrash metal guy, so I don't really go to thrash metal shows.
Oh, look, neither am I, and I'm always like, if I do go to a thrash show, I'm kind of just at the back.
Yeah. I'm like that at every show, though. I'm always in the back. I can't do it anymore. The last show that I did that was at Dillinger Escape Plan, and I refractured my hand. I almost threw up from getting like heat exhaustion. I fucking crowd surfed and
all of the fun.
But but I mean, I'm like 30 years old now, so it's like I'm gonna break in half if I do anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I guess the last thing to really say about this album is that within 3 years after its release, they'd sold over 150,000 copies for their very first fucking album. That's pretty fucking good.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no, that's for your debut album. What was it on Megaforce? Like,
yeah, Megaforce.
Really good.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of bands do that on their debut album. Maybe well, no, not even. I can't even say like Metallica, but yeah, it was getting harder and harder to sell records back then, especially for a debut record. So that's awesome. Within 3 years they had that many copies sold. So I can only imagine like what they did like first week or whatever SoundScan like looks up.
Yeah, true.
So I guess the last thing is this album's going to be 30 years old. What do you think as far as it holding up?
Like I said, it's still something that I regularly listen to, even before you mentioned that we're going to do this. Like, I still listen to this album like every now and then, and I really still do love it, and it's it'll always be there.
Yeah. No, I think it, especially for it being a debut album, it's really fucking solid. You know, it's not like to compare, like it's not Death Angel solid, like fucking awesome, relentless, like thrash, but it's a good record. It's a really good record. But I think it's different. Yeah. And, it's a little different, you know.
And they really only got better until they got worse.
They did.
And then they got better again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they had a little roller coaster there. But in that respect, too, their output was much more consistent and better than Death Angel's. So...
Until 1994.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, the next album.
All right, so we're going to go to the far frigid north of Canada to talk about Voivod, Killing Technology.
Bonsoir, mon ami.
Poutine.
I don't even know. Yeah, exactly.
Jambon. Jus d'orange. I just said ham and orange juice, for those of you wondering.
I don't even know what I said. I just hear those words and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
I only remember like curse word like French Canadian French from touring with Despise Icon and Beneath the Massacre. And I don't even know if it's proper.
When you learn a new language, you always want to learn what swear words are.
Yep, absolutely. You always want to know the fucks and shits and cunts.
Exactly.
All right, yeah. So fucking Voivod Killing Technology, man. They recorded it within a month of the very end of 1986, between November and December, and it came out a few months later, April 3rd, 1987. So 2 days from now, it will have been released, and this album will be 30 years old officially. Oh wait, it's a second over there for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Damn it! I can't do an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, I was gonna say no, you can't do that just yet. But I think by the time this posts, it would be 30 years old.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, by the time this goes up, this album will be 30 years old. Haha. Time.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, they actually recorded this in Berlin.
Yeah. Which is cool, man. I mean, I know Bowie was pretty notorious for recording in Berlin a lot.
Yeah, I think that they recorded this because they just finished a tour with Possessed and one of their noise label people, Death Row.
Yeah.
Instead of just they were like, oh yeah, we could go back to the US after this tour and do it, or we can go back to Canada and do this, or we can just, we're right here. Germany has, recording studios. Let's just do it here.
Yep, and that's a pretty good decision. I mean, they obviously weren't really picky about like having, like a crazy awesome studio or something like that. It was just kind of like, hey man, we just want to record this album. Why not do it since we're already here? It's
exactly we're ready to go. Let's just get into it.
Yeah, and that's a cool thing that they were already like getting off of a tour and they were like just ready to go like that. It's pretty rare.
Exactly.
So, funny enough, though, this the drummer commented that this was like the first professional studio they actually got to work in. It's from a Metal Hammer interview from 1987. So he's saying that everything seemed to work right, the equipment, the atmosphere. On the musical side, we're totally satisfied. It's a step in the right direction in every way. It sounds more mature than its predecessors, and there are vast improvements in the song material as well. We also worked with sound effects, which is a first for Voivod, which shows that we're developing musically, but without leaving our roots. The lyrics in Killing Technology... Oh, am I going ahead? No, I'm good. The lyrics in Killing Technology are about the abuse of high technology, which can have a disastrous consequences. Actually, I think I did go ahead. Anyways, we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, this is, I mean, by this time, this is their third album. They've already released like 2, pretty standard thrash metal albums. Nothing to
really write home about.
Yeah,
Nothing
I mean,
really to like, oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they're good.
It's like, it was just there, yeah.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they were from Canada kind of helped too a little bit, especially at that time. It was like, oh, yeah, there's a Canada thrash band. Like, this is their version of thrash. And to be fair, those first 2 albums do sound like Canada's version of thrash. It's different. But
polite.
It's still thrash. It's not it's not breaking the mold or anything. But then you get to this album and it's a lot more dissonant and kind of like I don't want to say it's proggy, but it's got a lot of notes that a lot of thrash metal bands don't use. Like, it's still thrashy, but it's like more like, I guess bands that would be comparable, that would be influenced by this, would be like Gorguts, Atheist, Dillinger Escape Plan, Botch, those kind of bands. This is kind of where that started. This is where it came from.
Yeah, it really is one of those, one of these things isn't like the other.
Yeah.
From the albums that we've been talking about so far. This is kind of really just like left field, and it's almost a little bit more experimental than your standard what was thrash metal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to this just prior to actually recording, and I was like, this is different, but I still recognize it.
Yeah, it's got very similar tones, but it does enough to like stand out from the pack with this album especially. And then like once you realize like kind of the bands that I was naming, like what they sound like, and then you hear this album, you're like, oh fuck yeah, that is where that started. And because the whole reason, like we've talked about many times about doing this podcast, it's cool to see where these different genres or sounds kind of started from. And Voivod is one of those bands that like took this different direction from thrash metal, and you see all these crazy fast, like, not many bands before this had been so heavily based around like harsh semitones and tritones, which is what is on this album. And then, like I was saying, you have Dillinger Escape Plan and bands like that are now taking that formula that Voivod started and just like making it a new thing all on its own.
Oh, exactly. And I really do feel like it's when a foreign country like tries to do like a certain like genre of metal,
mm-hmm.
it really kind of sounds a little bit more sincere.
Yeah.
Whether it's like if there's like some Australian nu metal band, it always sounded a little bit more sincere than say American stuff coming out at the time.
Yeah,
that were getting on the bandwagon, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I would say like one of the biggest examples of that from your country is Parkway Drive. They're like a huge metalcore band, but they do it better than a lot of metalcore bands here. And not only that, they're still doing it and are still being successful because everybody gave up or started playing deathcore instead.
Yeah, exactly. And then to Parkway Drive's credit, they're still going. And I remember seeing them in like little rooms of like 50 people back in like 2004. So
crazy, right?
Oh, look, it's absolutely crazy. And then one of the album and the next album that we're going to be talking about also has like an almost Australian equivalent as well, which we'll get into later.
Cool. Yeah, I want to hear about that because I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, actually, real quick before we kind of finish up with this record, we'll hit on a couple more things like lyric themes and stuff like that. But real quick, we have another interview we're gonna kind of pop in here for you real quick. It's the singer talking about kind of being part of in the thrash metal scene and like what Voivod's place is in that, and how they influence bands or not influence bands or whatever it is. So we're going to let you listen to that real quick, and then we'll finish up with this album and on to the next.
Well, back in the days, people were doing crazy stuff. It's just like, it was all over the place. Slater had their own sound, and Metallica back then, and Anthrax. And everything was just exploding. And we're kind of different because, we're from Canada. I don't know if it makes a difference somehow. But we're from north, in the woods, far out, And so I guess we had to fight more to be part of this wave of thrash metal or whatever. And we tried to create our own sound and our own bubble, of identity, that's why I think we came out with. But every album was different. I think from the first to the second and to the third, there's an evolution that goes with it. Roar was like the kind of the middle between our first record and the third record. It was just like the transition from being, punk, trash, whatever, to progressive metal. It was just in the middle of it. And the sound was really trashy, and but people just, I think people digged it for that. It's just like it was a mixture of both. When I look back to it, but back then we didn't think of anything. We were just like we were just creating as we were. We were looking at the other band and saying, oh, they're doing that kind of thing, they're doing that kind of thing, but us is different. It's just sounds like we sound like ripping headaches and trashing rage and stuff like that. Heavy drums and chords, riff that rip you up. It's just a transition. When you look at it now, it's a transition from album to album. But back then, we were just like raging into it.
Cool. So hopefully you guys got a little bit out of that interview. It's pretty cool hearing what he thinks about thrash metal and Voivod's place in it. So I guess kind of the last thing that we should talk about, which is pretty cool, is the lyrical content. The fact that Voivod is Canadian and pretty much they're more in tune with, like, I don't want to say controversial, but like more like political subjects of the 1980s than most bands at that time. And not only that, like American politics. I mean, it makes us not look bad, but it's, it's always interesting to me when a band that isn't from the country focuses more on outside of their country, like, the bad shit that's going on, and then they write about it. They had stuff like nuclear meltdowns and Chernobyl and climate change and, Reagan, that fucking bitch Reagan, like.
Well, then again, it's always easy for bands not from. It's always easy for bands, especially here, to like go on and criticize, what's going on in your country. But then, as soon as you turn the focus and point the finger at them, what are they doing? Well, they don't. Well, they'll just like be tongue tied because they obviously don't want to upset their own base. So I feel like that gives you a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, I suppose, but I feel like especially, I mean. Okay, so in the 80s, Reagan, to give some context, Reagan is, not to get too political, but we'll digress for a minute. It's whatever. It's a podcast. Reagan was equally as bad as Donald Trump is right now. They are just focusing on different things. But, the whole war on drugs was because of Reagan. And look how much that fucked up a lot of our country. the AIDS epidemic. He fucking ignored that right out. He didn't give a fuck. Anyways, Trump, I think with Trump right now, everybody has every right to talk shit on America. I fucking agree with whatever anybody has to say about our country right now. But, I know this is like...
It's at the same time, like, you got right to talk shit, but then it's like, okay, well, what would you do?
Yeah,
just get him out. And it's like, well, then what?
No, that's what I think every day when I wake up is like, how the fuck are we going to get rid of this guy? Like, why hasn't it happened yet? We're 70 days into this. Like, why isn't he gone? It's hard living here and having to deal with that. I just don't know what to do about it personally. But that's why we have things like podcasts and music, so we don't have to fucking pay attention to all these bigger problems, and we'll just hope it sorts itself out.
Which it always does.
Yeah. Whether it's with a
but whether it's with a fist or whether it's with a pen, it'll sort itself out.
Yeah. So, anyways, minus that weird political discourse.
Yeah.
I think that this album, man, the fact that it influenced so many bands that I love personally, this album absolutely holds up because it was the start of something that wasn't quite fleshed out yet, and then all these other bands picked up on it and made it fucking better. And Dillinger Escape Plan is one of my favorite fucking bands ever. So
same here. Yeah, it was a real kind of pleasant surprise to go back and listen to this again, and it's really something that really shouldn't have fallen into obscurity like it kind of has.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate, man. Like, they definitely have like that underground cred, but this album is more than worth like going to check out and kind of seeing where this sound kind of started from. That dissonant, thrashy metal sound.
Exactly, and not only did it inspire that, but you should sure as hell it's inspired the early '90s Canadian death metal scene, like Cryptopsy and all those other bands coming, like you said, Gorguts before. So like I said, this is a really kind of interesting, like a placeholder album, and it really should be promoted more. Yeah,
and the cool thing is too, Voivod has a pretty extensive discography, so it's kind of hard. It's pretty hard to like find one record and be like, where do you start with them? Because all their records are so vastly different. They're all over the place.
Yeah, exactly. But I honestly think that you start here.
Yeah, I mean, I would listen to the first two, just kind of get like this is where it started and this is where it went,
Yeah, true.
I'm sure at some point we will go back and talk about those albums too. Just not for what we're doing right now with the podcast. So
exactly, yeah, one day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah, everything we're doing right now is all anniversary type records. Either records. I think we did talk about this, but stuff that's either 10, 20, or 30 years old. That's kind of what we're trying to do right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
So I am fucking so excited to talk about this next album. Not even kidding.
I know you are. Don't worry.
I love this band so much. I think this album gets shit on way too much, and everybody's fucking wrong because it's a good album. We're going to talk about Faith No More's Introduce Yourself. Matt, introduce yourself right now.
Yeah, g'day. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Fucking, not only that, that's a heavy fucking song, man. It's got like a good little like chuggy fucking metal like breakdown almost, not quite, but it's got like a good fucking it's a good song, man.
Oh, no doubt. And I mean, just to even just get more into this album, like I really do love Faith No More. I really do like this album. I actually had the pleasure of seeing them, I think 2 years ago now.
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me about that, and I was fucking jealous. And then like every time they've toured since then, I've never been able to afford to go see them because it's really expensive to go see them.
Yeah, no. I remember seeing them at the Soundwave Festival. I think they closed out the first night, so it was like all outdoor, like big outdoor stadium. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. They played all the hits, right?
Oh, they did.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
So yeah, they recorded this in like the middle of 1986, and It got released on April 23rd, 1987. So this record is almost 30 years old. By the time this episode gets posted, it won't quite be 30 years old, but it'll be there. So this is technically their second record, but if you ask anybody in the band or even the people that worked on it, it is really their first record. They had a record called We Care a Lot that was their first record with Mosley on Chuck Mosley on vocals. That's right. It was not Mike Patton yet. So, you know, yeah, it's a predecessor to that album, but it's also superior to that album. I mean, they re-recorded a couple songs, obviously, We Care a Lot being one of those songs. And I mean, dude, that fucking opening bass line. Bam, bum, 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 bam, bum, bam.
Boom, boom. Yes.
Dude, yeah, it's so fucking, like, in your face. And then, I mean, I don't know if you guys ever got the show out in Australia, but you remember the show Dirty Jobs?
The Mike.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the We Care a Lot was the theme song for that show, for, like, the opening, like, theme song for that show, because it's a dirty job and somebody's got to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the theme song. And I mean, dude, that's kind of like what got me into Faith No More when that show was around. And I was like, oh, man, I dig this.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, this is really, as far as I'm concerned, this is their first album. We Care a Lot is more like a fucking EP. You know, it's raw. It's fucking super raw. You know, it doesn't sound as good recorded. They hadn't fully formed their, like, funk rock metal hybrid that the band would, like, kind of push into mainstream success a few years later.
Oh, of course. And then everyone trying to copy that is essentially, I really do feel that Faith No More was like the archetype of nu metal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you look at, like, a lot of their guitar riffs and how they sang a lot of their songs with, like, cleanish, rappy type vocals, I mean, you know.
It's especially when you get into to the next release as well. It's really more evident.
Yeah.
That's a thing. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing. You know, nu metal definitely has, like, its controversy or whatever you want to call it. You know, it's got its controversies, it's got its ups and it's got its downs. I personally fucking love it, and that's how I basically got into nu metal. I was at the right age when it peaked. Yeah.
So I have nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this a little bit off air before we started recording, but friends of mine who are actually, you're going to hear them on an upcoming episode, and all of them individually in upcoming episodes, but Carnifex, on their live show, they've been playing Slipknot's Heretic Anthem, and I mean, it's probably one of the best covers I've ever fucking heard, and live it just destroys. And I mean, I think Slipknot is like peak nu metal, and Iowa is probably one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh yeah, like same here as well, and just to hear, like, even, like, you know, mobile, like, cell phone recorded footage of it, it's like, yeah, I can see why.
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, anyways, getting back to this with the nu metal stuff. You know, Chuck Mosley gets a lot of shit for his singing. I don't know why. I don't think it's bad. And to be 100% honest with everybody, I didn't even know he wasn't Mike Patton up until, like, 2 or 3 years ago. I thought it was always Mike Patton in the band, because they, you know, their singing's different, but they do have a lot of similarities in how they deliver and project certain stuff, to where it's like, you know, there's inconsistencies, but you just chalk it up to being like, oh, maybe it was recorded wrong, you know, or something. At least in my head, I'm not saying that's how it is, but I honestly didn't know Chuck Mosley wasn't Mike Patton.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he's really all that bad of a vocalist. I do think there's a immaturity and a childishness to what he does, even just like listening to, like, a lot of interviews with him. I don't want to say he's a douchebag, but he's a little childish. He's not, like, Mike
Not
Patton.
exactly the world's most professional, person, but then again, that's fine. Like, if you aren't having fun doing what you're doing, then, why do it at all?
Yeah. And I mean, apparently there were other things going on. Apparently he was like a crack addict or something. And I know we're skipping ahead a little bit with this, but he was also dissatisfied with a lot of his stuff. And like one of his last shows he ever did, he fell asleep on stage during the album release show. Like when this fucking album came out, they were playing a show and he fell asleep on stage, and then they kicked him out like pretty soon after that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's coming off a major crack high. It sounds like.
Yeah, that's what I understand is he was a drug addict, and that's unfortunate. And drug addiction's hard. We can never really know like what it was like in his shoes, but I think he lost, a big career there. But he's doing other things. It's if any of you saw like videos from like the past year when Faith No More was on tour, Mosley showed up to a lot of shows and was doing vocals either with Mike Patton or they were just straight up letting him sing the songs by himself, and they sound fucking good.
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, I guess going into a little bit of the recording of the album. The producer Matt Wallace got a little, well, not an interview, but like a quote from him, if you will. So yeah, the guy that produced and engineered the record, he kind of agrees with what I think, in the fact that it's an overlook Faith No More record. They tracked it on a Trident TSM up in Studio D in Sausalito, California. Sausalito is pretty close to where I used to live. I forget how far, but I think it's like an hour away or something like that. So they did a bunch of overdubs at a place called Control Center that used to be located in Koreatown in Los Angeles. Introduce Yourself was the last hand-mixed album he ever did. So like there was no automation. He had to fucking do all those little knobs and all that shit in it. So he's saying, if memory serves, we returned to Studio D and I mixed the record without automation there. In typical Faith No More fashion, we only had one of each instrument. No alternate guitars, amps, drums. So everything was kind of done one and done. They did their track and then that was it.
I only do one take. Yep.
And he says too that this album has a sillier and kind of lighter undertone, probably to Chuck Mosley's like kind of vibe and worldview. Because there's even one song that starts out, it's like, I'm gonna go fucking skate downtown and I'm gonna look better than you doing it. Or, I forget the exact thing he says, but I mean that's kind of the attitude that this album has. He's like, it's like a skater punk vibe with funk kind of thrown in there,
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of like the whole like skater kind of punk vibe, what I mentioned earlier, and I think in the last topic was when we talk about Australia, like foreign bands trying to do this. There was something that kind of came up on my Spotify feed. I know like about a week or so ago, a band that used to be really, really popular here and had the kind of really exact same kind of style as these guys did, maybe even a little bit more towards the way of Limp Bizkit, was a band called 28 Days. And they got like really, really big at the start of the 2000s. They basically were almost like an Australian like Faith No More, like Limp Bizkit, like Rage Against the Machine type band, where it was kind of like a lot of like the Faith No More style, but with kind of like a Limp Bizkit type attitude, but they weren't assholes.
Yeah.
It's that weird kind of like Venn diagram.
Yeah, you got two circles, in the middle is the asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, well, in the middle is like where you need to be, but then it's like you don't want to be on the other side. But I mean, I just found that to be like quite. It was just to really kind of be like quite nostalgic going back into it. But I mean, getting back to what you were saying.
Yeah, they actually only took 2 weeks to record this album, which is pretty good time. They had about 10 days at what he says is a cesspool studio called the Control Center in L.A. And then they mixed back at Studio D, back in Sausalito, on a non-automated board. So you had to mark and memorize all the fades for every song. Back then it was like sharp concentrated, and now everything's automated. He doesn't have to sequence as much in that mindset.
Yeah.
So, and I guess during the recording, Chuck had a bunch of like coughing fits. I don't know why. We'll just leave that to conjecture. But basically, like, he kind of pushed him through it by getting him just to drink cough syrup, making him go to bed on time, no smoking cigarettes or pot, just singing. He even got him like to start jogging to kind of build up his lung power, just so he could like get him to deliver everything and just get it like good. So I think it worked. I mean, you know, the vocals aren't bad, man. I think it's a shame that this album kind of gets overlooked with, you know, the peak Faith No More stuff, because it's a good album, and to be fair, I like this album a lot more than like the later stuff like King for a Day and I even like it more than Soul Invictus, to be honest. Like Soul Invictus is good, but I don't like it that much.
Yeah, like it isn't like, it's just, oh yeah, that's cool, and then you can just go about your day doing something else.
Yeah, exactly. There's something missing on Soul Invictus, and I think it's in the guitar tone. For me personally, it's missing like that old Faith No More like oomph, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, for this album, man, everything kind of just, it all came together. You know, you got tribal beats, crunching metal guitar, half rap, half sung vocals. You know, it just kind of coalesced into something that was brand new and original. You know, we talk about Voivod starting a bunch of stuff. Well, Faith No More fucking started a bunch of stuff too, man.
Yeah, exactly. It started a fucking almost cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, entirely. And then, you know, you can, like you were saying, you can blame new metal on them. And because it was revolutionary. It was bands like Killing Joke, Metallica, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers just fucking slammed up in one big fuck fest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, you know, you got like good fucking riffs and like keyboards and like, you know, like I was saying, like that good fucking bass tone.
Yeah, it's like if you hear that bass tone, you know it's fucking Faith No More.
Yes, entirely. Like you don't need to hear anything else. And even though they're not like overtly metal, I think a lot of people would actually overlook this band and say they're not metal. But it's very clear that the guitar player he had like metal influences. He liked doing heavy, dark stuff. Whether it's like twisty, snaky licks or full on like thrash, like Chuggarama stuff. Like just listen to the Crab song and wait for about 2 minutes and 45 seconds in and be like, oh yeah. Or like I was saying earlier with just Introduce Yourself, that like nice little chuggy fucking metal song. It's a good metal song.
Yeah, no doubt. Like this is, like I said, this really is an album that is unfortunately overlooked, and I think they actually play We Care a Lot. I think that's what they closed the show with when I went to go see them, and that was fucking epic, to say the least.
Epic.
Yeah. But I mean, even if you take like The Real Thing, which is probably my favorite album of theirs, even though it was Mike Patton's first album, like, this is still a good album.
Yep. Yeah,
it's still good.
And I mean, I'm with you there. I do think The Real Thing is like probably up there, that and Angel Dust for sure. But I love this album too, regardless. There's so many good songs on here. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a different vibe than the other albums with Mike Patton, but
it's fine.
I promise you guys, go listen to this album and like just soak it in. Like, you'll be thankful that you gave this album a chance. It's got a lot of good stuff on there.
Exactly. But I do notice one thing, you've actually got something in your notes here, which I had a bit of a chuckle about when I first read them a couple of days ago.
Yeah, we're gonna you can go ahead and read it, but we're gonna close. We're not gonna close the episode that way. But after you read this fact, I do have a little snippet of an interview from the horse's mouth about this thing that this bomb we're about to drop on you guys. I had no idea that this was a thing. And when I found out, I was just like, I messaged Matt immediately and I was like, dude, here's what I just found out about Faith No More. So Matt, why don't you regale the people with this fact?
And what he found out was the fact that Courtney Love, actually was in Faith No More for about 6 months after sleeping with the keyboard player Roddy Bottum.
Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Courtney Love. was in Faith No More. So we're gonna let you listen to a snippet. I think this snippet is actually from you. I don't know if you ever saw this, but we had this show here. It was on VH1. It was called like Behind the Music.
We had VH1 out here.
Okay,
for a little
cool.
Bit, yeah.
So yeah, it's like a snippet from that episode of. I don't know if it's from her episode or what, but she's talking about being in Faith No More and like how she got in it and what she was doing and just her general. I don't know how to describe Courtney Love anymore. Just Courtney Loveness. So yeah, we're gonna let you listen to that real quick, and then we'll finish up.
Courtney continued to follow her impulses, traveling up and down the West Coast, staying with friends, stripping for cash, and looking for a band. In San Francisco, she finally found one.
It was the summer I was 18. I saw Faith No More playing with Gun Club, and they had a crap singer, and I had a wedding gown on, and I looked cool, and I knew it. And I demanded to be in their band. And then I broke a bottle over my head. That is the legend. I can't recall.
She just talked her way basically into the band. Courtney said, "What sign are you?"
He goes, "Cancer." I go, "Me too. When's your birthday?" July 1st. "Me too."
I was like, wow. It was like kind of like kismet.
That was my way of getting him to sleep with me, was by telling him that I had the same birthday. And it stuck. Oh, it was such a bad lie. It was so awful.
Courtney fronted Faith No More for a few months. Despite some early promise, she didn't last.
Faith No More didn't want to have the image of a chick singer anymore. And I was unhappy as hell.
We wanted a male energy. That's sort of just a direction that we needed to go as a band.
There was no place for a woman in that world. There was none. I declared that I was going to start a band. I wanted to have an all-female band that took over the entire world.
All right. So, did that blow everybody's mind? Right?
Fucking blew my mind.
Fuck, dude. Courtney Love. Could you imagine if Faith No More just kept her? What would they even? Could you imagine Courtney Love like rapping like?
Well, Kurt Cobain would still be alive.
Oh yeah, he might.
All right. So I don't think we'll ever get to talk about Nirvana. I don't know if you want to talk about Nirvana.
No, we're not going to go into that.
But do you reckon she did it?
You know, I waver on the situation. Sometimes I do think she did it, and then there are other times I realize that Kurt was a suicidal drug addict, and he probably just fucking killed himself. But when you look at like all the weird evidence of like how he killed himself, it doesn't make sense. He was so fucking high on heroin that he could not have pulled a trigger, much less with his toe. So
I was gonna say it's almost like those instances when you hear about the old Hillary Clinton stuff. Is it like, oh, they committed suicide with 2 bullets to the back of the head and slashed wrists?
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It's one of those things the world will never know, and I'll just keep fucking pondering about it.
Yeah, I'm almost in the camp where it's like, well, it's a little bit too, like, even though she probably didn't do it, but like, there's still too much suspicion around it where it's like, better safe than sorry.
Yeah, something has not been told that happened, basically.
But yeah, that's one of the funny. Just one of like the one of the more kind of fun, not funny, but like it's one of the more interestingly like humorous conspiracy theories.
It really is. And not only that, sometimes too, man, when I listen to Courtney Love talk, I'm just like, she's too dumb. She's just way too dumb.
She's either playing that way or she just did it by accident.
Oh man, I never thought about that too. What if she did accidentally just kill him and then just stage it? Damn.
Again, like you'd think that she'd be too dumb to stage it.
Oh shit, yeah, you're not wrong.
Oh.
All right, guys. Well, we hope you fucking enjoyed all this cool shit that we had to talk about on this episode. This album definitely holds up for 30 years.
Yep, 30
undoubtedly.
Years. Don't even need to go into that.
Yeah. So it's cool that you guys have been leaving reviews on the iTunes, but nobody sent us any proof, and we want to give you guys cool shit. So if
literally have an entire like drawer full of CDs that I need to get rid of. Some of them are signed, some aren't. So send us something, and you will get something.
Yeah, I mean, we're glad that you guys finally left reviews and shit, but we wanted to do it as like a contest so you guys could like win stuff, and nobody has sent us any proof of who did what, so we don't know who to send stuff to. So fucking take a screenshot or just even email us saying like, oh, I did it, and we'll just fucking send you something. I don't care. I'll believe you. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah, it's fine.
But thank you guys for doing that. That's fucking awesome that you all left reviews. It helps us so much. Like, you have no fucking idea. We got a bunch of cool stuff in store for you. Like I said, I sat down with Carnifex 2 days ago. Did a little short interview. It's kind of weird interviewing my friends. You know, it'd be like me and Matt sitting down and like interviewing each other.
Yeah.
You know, it comes off a little weird for me.
Almost forced, but then at the same time, I'm sure it's going to turn out fine, mate. So you'll be right.
Yeah. The sound might be kind of bad on that. I could not get our 2 mics set up to work, so I had to kind of like pass the microphone around the room. One of those deals. But we're looking forward to sharing that with you. And not only that, they are all going to be coming on the podcast individually to talk about records. So be looking forward to that within the coming weeks. I've reached out to many, many more cool people we're just trying to get schedules aligned. But you know, I've reached out to like Kill When You Dead, the Red Chord guys, possibly Trevor from the Black Dahlia Murder. So that's what we got in store for you guys right now.
Yeah, no, that's going to be looking really forward to doing that, and I really hope that everyone's going to be looking forward to hearing that as well. So, so fucking good on you, man.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you guys, and Matt, I appreciate you as always. Couldn't do this without you.
Appreciate you too, brother.
Oh my god, yes.
But where can people find you on our social media? Where can people find the podcast?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, I mainly run the Heavy Metal History Instagram, but if you want to follow me personally on anything, it's at Dustin Wildcard. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really use social media that much. I do it out of obligation. Everything else on social media, whether it's Facebook or our website, it's Heavy Metal History Podcast. Same thing with our email. Go there, just type it into Google, and everything should come up. You can go to our website and find everything too. Whether it's to email us or Facebook or any of that, even links to the episodes, it's all on our website, heavymetalhistorypodcast.com.
Yeah, it's heavymetalhistory@gmail.com, and if you need to find me, you can just type in the Matt Jordan with 2 T's, and pretty much everything, and you should be able to find me from there. That's right. And if you guys want to go to Australia, if you honestly want to go to Australia, come to Sydney. You'll be set for the time that you're here. No questions about it. Just don't be a creep, and you're cool. All right, guys. Well, until next week, cheers, cunts. Cheers, cunts. We'll see you around.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes!